Okay, I know. I haven't made a Formula 1 video in a while. However, this is one I really wanted to make. So, I have watched F2 for a while now, as you all know, and one of the things I've always been skeptical about is the performance of ART's second driver. Yes, oftentimes the quicker driver in an F2 team will get preferential treatment, however, the results of ART's number 2 driver are far more disturbing than most. Therefore, today I thought I'd highlight ART and the curse of the number 2 driver. ART GP is a French racing team that entered GP2 in 2005. The team was founded by Alfa Romeo team principal Frédéric Vasseur and Nicolas Todt, son of Jean Todt. The team has made a fantastic impression on the series, winning the teams and drivers' championships in their first ever season. The drivers' championship was none other than Mr. Nico Rosberg, who beat Arden driver Heikki Kovalainen to the title. His teammate Alexander Premat scored half the points that Rosberg did, however it was still good enough for P4 in the championship, since the series at this point was about as competitive as a game of wild animal racing. ART went into the 2006 season strong, with Premat staying at the team, accompanied by a small British name, Lewis Hamilton, I think that's how you say it. The British youngster dominated the season, something that we've grown rather used to recently, with 5 wins and 14 podiums. Premat finished third in the championship, again with half the number of points as his teammate. However, at this point, I believe that this was just down to driving ability, and there wasn't any form of inter-team bias. This would come later. In 2007, ART ran 4 drivers overall, 3 of which would occasionally occupy the second seat, so there's not much we can draw from this season apart from... Wait, is that Glock? In 2008, the team's results were lacking, with the first driver Romain Grosjean picking up P4, whilst their second drivers' results weren't too pretty either. 2009 saw a very familiar lineup, with Nico Hülkenberg accompanied by Pastor Maldonado. This lineup was very strong for ART, picking up P1 in the drivers with Hülkenberg. Maldonado, on the other hand, did what Maldonados do best: cause havoc. Despite the abundance of retirements, Pastor still picked up P6 in the championship, a whopping 64 points off Nico. However, again, in this instance, it was easy to blame Maldonado's, antics. However, Pastor would win the 2010 GP2 season with the Rapax team, marginally ahead of Sergio Perez. ART would finish third in the championship with Jules Bianchi and Sam Bird. These drivers were closely matched, completely challenging the theme of the video, but again, like I said, the conspiracies would come later. ART was purchased by Lotus Motor Group for the 2011 season, rebranding as ART Lotus, running a green and yellow livery. Jules Bianchi was retained for the season, whilst Esteban Gutierrez was signed as the number 2. This was the first time that there was a significant gap between the drivers, with Bianchi in P3 and Gutierrez in 13th, but let's be real, that's just because Esteban was shit. 2012 saw the livery shift to black and gold to match their F1 equivalent. Also, ART was removed from the name entirely, resulting in the team just being called Lotus GP. This time round, Gutierrez came P3, with his new teammate James Calado down in P5, so nothing out of the ordinary still. Hopping forward to 2015, the team won its first Constructors' Championship since 2009, with Stoffel Vandoorne and Nobuharu Matsushita. However, this was the first time we saw a significant points gap between the two drivers, with Vandoorne obliterating the field on 341.5 points, whilst Matsushita would pick up a measly 68.5 points. However, this wasn't nearly as bad as what was to come. Skipping the 2016 season and moving straight to 17, we can see Alexander Albon line up alongside Nobuharu Matsushita, who's still somehow in the series. This must be longer than Sean Galeo. On paper, the gap between the two drivers isn't significant enough to pinpoint any major differences, with Matsushita scoring 50 points more than Albon over the course of the season. However, Albon seemed to be visually slower. Yes, there isn't any evidence to support this fully, however, there was enough to be skeptical on the nature of the team, especially considering that Albon would come third in the championship with Dams in 2018. This following year, George Russell won the Formula 2 championship comfortably, after imitating Lewis Hamilton and dominating the season. However, ART did not win the championship, due to, you guessed it, a poor performing number 2 driver. So we have all heard of Jack Aitken, highly regarded Williams Jr. driver who's single-handedly the reason for the Mercedes catastrophe at Sakir. Nevertheless, Aitken is a very talented driver. Granted, we didn't have the chance to see that last season, mainly due to the fact that Campos were just crap. However, he's a better driver than his results in the 2018 season suggest. Jack scored 63 points, whilst Russell scored a whopping 287. This was the first time that people batted an eyelid at the French team, since for the second year running, the number 1 driver was visibly faster, and not just due to skill. George Russell would be scoring an abundance abundance of P1s and podiums whilst his teammate would be struggling to get points. And it's all very well blaming it on the ability of the second driver, however, once you look into it further, it just doesn't add up. For example, the fact that Aitken scored P5 in a Campos the following year. No other team in Formula 2 has ever been able to maintain such a large, consistent gap between their two drivers. And looking at the junior careers of the drivers who struggle immediately suggests that there is something more sinister behind the scenes. Even in GP3, Callum Ilott complained about the team's treatment. In 2018, Ilott lined up alongside Antoine Hubert and Nikita Mazepin. As discussed more thoroughly in my Ilott video, Callum had a very good junior career. However, this halted during his GP3 season, losing out to both of his teammates significantly. The fact that he was beaten by Mazepin, and not literally this time, was instantly concerning considering the poor performance of the Russian in the past. So what was going on? Callum Ilott has since spoken openly about the lack of support that he received from the team. He believed that the team were focusing far more time and resources into the other two drivers, including setting up the car, etc. This would explain why Mazepin beat Ilott, only to be comprehensively beaten in F2 the following year. But guess what? Mazepin was ART's second driver. 2019 was the most compelling evidence to suggest that there was something going on regarding the treatment of the second driver. Nick de Vries won the championship by over 50 points, whilst his teammate, Angry Eggman, finished P18 with a staggering 255-point deficit. It's very easy to blame this on Mazepin being catastrophically bad, but as much as I hate to say it, he wasn't. If this was a one-off, it wouldn't be a huge deal, but it wasn't. This had been the case for the previous few seasons. In 2018 and 19, the Drivers' Championship was won by an ART driver, yet they didn't get close to the Team's Championship. It was ART sacrificing the Team's Championship for the Drivers' Championship. To be completely honest, I'm not sure. However, I believe that it is clear that this is what was going on. The team were focusing all of their time, resources, and attention into their fastest driver, and essentially leaving the second driver on their own. I say fastest driver because essentially Nikita Mazepin was the number one in 2019. No matter how many parallel universes exist, you will never be able to convince me that Mazepin is better than de Vries. However, he was quick enough for P6 in 2020 with high tech. So where was his pace in ART? This brings us to the 2020 season, where ART ran a strong lineup including Christian Lundgaard and Marcus Armstrong. To this point, both of them had a fantastic junior career, so they both should have done well in F2, right? Wrong. At the start of the season, a Reddit user on the r/F1 Feeder Series subreddit predicted that the ART drivers' performance would be similar for the first few races. However, the driver with the best results would be the priority for the remainder of the season, whilst the other drivers' results would tail off. This is exactly what happened. Both of ART's drivers started off the season strongly, with Lundgaard having the slightest edge over his teammate. Armstrong picked up 2 podiums in the first 4 races, however Lundgaard would score more points after winning the Styrian feature race. Lundgaard would pick up 5 more podiums over the course of the season, however Armstrong would struggle for points. So you're telling me that Armstrong started off the season with 2 podiums at the first 2 rounds, but he coincidentally fell off by a mile for the rest of the season. Seems a bit fishy, don't you think? This brings us to 2021, where Lundgaard will be lining up alongside my favourite driver, Theo Pourchaire. Therefore, as you can imagine, I am praying that Theo can get the better of his teammate in the first few rounds. If not, well, we can expect to see Pourchaire struggling without any support from the team, because at this point I am 100% convinced that this is the case. Another thing I am willing to predict is a fantastic performance from Marcus Armstrong at Dams. After Albon, Aitken and Mazepin's improved performance at different teams, I am confident about the future of Armstrong. So, in conclusion, I believe that for a few years now, ARTGP have been focusing all of their attention on their fastest driver, supporting them more on and off the track, with setups and strategies. There are too many examples of this to be a coincidence, also supported by ex-ART driver Callum Ilott. However, I may be entirely wrong, so this is only really a theory. Anyway, what do you all think? Do you believe that ART's number 2 driver is left with less support than their teammate? Please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video enough to watch more, as always, please remember to subscribe to the channel because it would help me out a bunch. And if you do so, I will see you all in the next video. But until then, take care, and thank you very much for watching.